factor regarding the Giants is that they...
yards for the season. Johnson. Well, he's about 2 yards closer to that 1,000-yard mark now.
3 yards from the play, second down 7.
Don't forget, for every yard that a fellow like Johnson gets, there's an offensive lineman doing a pretty good job.
With the score, New York 31 and St. Louis 17. Let's pause for a moment.
2 minutes remain to be played.
Jack, I was just saying that Giant offensive line is really blocked. Harper, Case, Larson, Van Horn, and Dick Buzzin. They're just numbers and big people down there, but they are individuals too, and they have really done a job and should be accounted for. They've blocked a real good defensive football team well.
On the ground, New York has 137 yards, and this is against a quite strong and quality defensive team called the St. Louis Cardinals. Two minutes left to play in this football game, and the Giants with 31 and the Cardinals with 17. Back at Bush Memorial Stadium, 2 minutes left to play. New York, 36-yard line of St. Louis. Jerry Stovall is back in the football game after missing a few series. Fredrickson is grabbed by number 75, Bob Rose.
I notice Larry Wilson is not back in the game, number 8. So the sprained ankle or something in that lower leg has put the defensive captain of the Cardinals on that bench.
St. Louis has taken a timeout. Clock is at 1:52.
Perhaps this Cardinal team came in with too much riding on the game. It's hard to say that, but they did seem tight. Warming up, they seemed tight. And the Giants seemed very loose. And as Webster said, look, are you kidding? We're second best. We have no pressure on us.
Well, the Cardinals have, since they've been in St. Louis, this is the closest they've come, and of course that has to make a little bit of a difference. Of course, for most of these New York Giants, this is as close as they've come. Well, a lot of funny things going on there. Here goes Ron Johnson. Out of bounds finally, but picked up maybe a yard on the play.
Out of bounds by Rowe and Brown.
If you had to single out one factor for the Giants' resurgence, it's the fellow right on your screen, number 30. Johnson was obtained from the Cleveland Browns, formerly of Michigan, Big Ten. But I think in the first win of the year against the Eagles, it was Johnson's 140-some-odd yards rushing that gave Fran Tarkenton that needed ground game. And the whole team has really gelled, maybe because of number 30.
Gogolak now will try one from the 46-yard line. It is good. It is good. The second one today for Gogolak to increase the Giants' lead now to 34-17 with 1 minute and 42 seconds to play. Now, immediately following the game, Bill Mazur is going to bring you up to date on all the games being played. And as you know, the Eastern Division of this conference isn't the only one that's very scrambled. So a lot of decisions may have been made today on the football field. We'll see who the four are going to be that fight it out.
Jack, I can't recall when all the divisions were so much still up in the air. Really, Minnesota and Baltimore. But other than that, just about everybody that was in contention still seems to be in contention. It's still all wrapped up.
Overline kicking off for New York.
Shivers and Ladderette deep. Ladderette. And Otto Brown waltzes him down at the 22-yard line. A New York win today would put them in tie for first place with the Dallas Cowboys in the Eastern Division, both with 9-4 records, and St. Louis would have 8-4-1. And we'd all have to wait till next Sunday. MacArthur Lane. Otto Brown stops him and gets the help he needs to put the big runner down at about the 27, 8-yard line.
Brought down by Shea and Green.
Willie Williams almost had the interception. Pass intended for Gilliam. Brings up a third down. And 57 seconds left. Bob Tucker, Greg Larson, and Alex Webster will be the guests on the post-game show. New York in a very preventive defense. Ken Parker on the stop of MacArthur Lane as we look at the story here from Bush Memorial Stadium. Lane has caught 4 passes for 105 yards. He has rushed 9 times for only 27 yards. And Jim Hart, 12 for 25, 285 yards. So 1 touchdown to Jackie Smith, who made a classic run on it, and 1 interception, which Scott Eaton took away in the end zone. Measuring for the first down. 68 yards total rushing for the Cardinals as the Giant defense contained them pretty well. Giants have 137 yards total rushing. 65 for Fredrickson on 14 carries. 64 for Ron Johnson on 28 carries. He has a total now of 984 yards on the season and seems assured to be a 1,000-yard man this year. And tempers almost exploding down there out of frustration. The first down is made. Timeout, St. Louis, with 42 seconds left. Otto Brown, Joe Green, Ken Parker, Scott Eaton, Willie Williams. And Lockhart all in that secondary now for New York. Three-man rush. Now, so many Giants around. Pass intended for Jackie Smith. And now, look at Ken Parker go. And we've been expecting it all day. It was just here, and you knew it. And there it is, folks. Just like an ugly boil, it was bound to go, and it has gone. "35 seconds left in this football game as Norm Schachter, and he has plenty of help now in trying to get the piece. Both benches emptied. Alex Webster and Norm Schachter exchanging some information. Let's see what the decision is going to be after all of this. Well, it's going to go against New York. Down to the 38-yard line. Personal foul.
15 yards. Personal foul penalty against New
Official
York.
timeout. Scott Eaton. Gilliam and Williams to the right side. Whoa, almost intercepted, then almost received by Jackie Smith. Willie Williams for the defense. 1/2 a minute remains in this football game. Jackie Smith had quite an afternoon. 4 catches for 114 yards. And one of the 2 St. Louis touchdowns. Half the people have left the ballpark. For Sid Edwards, Jim Files tiptoeing up behind him. 3rd down. That was the 48th offensive play for St. Louis. They have 337 total yards against 344 for New York. MacArthur Lane on a 78-yard screen for a touchdown. And Jackie Smith on a 47-yarder. MacArthur Lane cannot hold it. Wrapped by Ken Parker. And right in front of the Giants bench. Not a very good place to start anything if you have a red shirt. 23 seconds. MacArthur Lane, but this time they pull him down. And here we go again. Look out, fellas. Herb Goody, number 55. Very upset. And we're short of the first down with 12 seconds left. New York's football. And they're going to call the game. The game is over here as the New York Giants defeat the St. Louis Cardinals 34-17 and go into a tie for first place with the Dallas Cowboys. Identical records of 9-4. St. Louis dropping to second place, 8-4-1, but they are still in it. And as we said, we're going to have to wait until next Sunday evening to know who is going to be in these playoffs. But a tremendously important victory here for the New York Giants against the team they had to beat. And they did it with consummate grace and ease. Now let's go down to our CBS control to Bill Mazur and Tom Brookshire.
Thank you very much, Jack. Tom's guests will be Coach Alex Webster, along with center Greg Larson and fine tight end Bob Tucker. This was a great win for the Giants, of course, and now moves them into a tie with Dallas. Actually, the Giants have a little bit of an edge over Dallas. We'll explain it a little later. Here was one of the big plays of the ball game. Tarkenton scrambling, as you will see, under severe pressure, rolls left. Watch him right here. Suddenly finds a man open. It's Tucker. Tucker seems to be stopped right about here and laterals the ball to Don Herman. And Herman, behind Ron Johnson's fine block, goes in for the touchdown that made it 14-0 the Giants. Now, we'll be back in just a moment as the NFL Today continues with a Pro Football Report.
This Christmas, Steve Farrell bought a present for himself, the all-new Dutch Masters cigar jar. He really liked the opaline glass jar with its new seascape design, but the part he liked best was inside. 25 mild Dutch Masters presidents. Steve thinks the Dutch Masters cigar jar is the best present he ever bought for himself. And for his wife. We won't tell if you won't.
It's here. The natural hair control men have always wanted. New Command Dry and Natural.
Dry and natural, made for men.
Dry and natural. Never greasy, never perfumey, never messy. A clean, natural hold.
Dry and natural, made for men.
New Command Dry and Natural. Find it next to Command Hair Groomer and Command for Stubborn Hair.
Dry and natural.
Big day for Bob Lee. We'll run the ones down quickly that you've already gotten from Tom Brookshire. Minnesota beat Boston 35-14. Lee had a big day for Minnesota, threw for 2, ran for 1. Atlanta crushed Pittsburgh's hopes for a possible playoff berth as they beat them by a score of 27-16, a big day for Randy Johnson. Baltimore is in the playoffs and probably the winner in the East and the AFC as they beat Buffalo 20-14, a very difficult game. Washington's Sonny Jurgensen had himself a good day. 24-6, Washington beat Philadelphia. Chicago's Jack Concannon has had a marvelous day as he has thrown for 4 touchdown passes, and that score is Chicago 28, Green Bay 10. Anderson ran for the 1 TD. Livingston kicked the field goal. They're in the 4th period. Cincinnati has done some job. Trailing here 13-6. Al Beecham recovered a fumble and ran it in for a touchdown. Then Essex Johnson ran for a touchdown. Virgil Carter threw to Johnson for a touchdown. Cincinnati leading at 27-13, and they may represent the Central Division in the American Football Conference. Now, turning to the San Francisco-New Orleans game, which is over, all I see is Brody. Brody to Washington, Brody to Washington, Brody to Washington, Brody a 1-yard run, and then Bruce Taylor on an attempted field goal that was far short, caught the ball on the 8-yard line, ran 92 yards for a touchdown. San Francisco 38, New Orleans 27 is a final score. Kilmer had a good day throwing for 3 TDs. San Diego leads Denver 7-0. John Hadel threw to Gary Garrison for the touchdown, 7-0 San Diego. In this one, the Jets got on the board first when Jim Turner kicked a 21-yard field goal. Then Bob Greasy threw to Howard Twilley for a touchdown there in the second quarter. Miami still with a chance to get into the playoffs in the American Football Conference. Now, Tom Brookshire will be here in a moment with his guests with the New York Giants, and we'll be back in just one moment.
This man keeps his antiperspirant locked up because it's not for the family. It's for the man of the family. Command Tahitian Lime Antiperspirant. It's got more anti-wet ingredients than the leading brand, so it works for men like no family deodorant can. And its scent is pure masculine. Command Tahitian Lime Antiperspirant. It's for the man of the family. Also from Command, new Dry and Natural. It holds a man's hair in place the dry way.
Don Green's Poker Club got a Christmas present from Mrs. Don Green. She gave them the Dutch Masters Masterpiece Collection. 2 decks of playing cards, printed with beautiful reproductions of Rembrandt's 2 most famous paintings, plus 25 smooth-smoking Dutch Masters Panatellas. Don Green's Poker Club really enjoyed the Dutch Masters Masterpiece Collection. And so did Mrs. Green.
Tom Brookshire is with me. We're waiting for our guests from the New York Giants. Tom Muhlman has just kicked a field goal, 30-13 in favor of Cincinnati. You've got some highlights, buddy. They're yours.
That's true. Bob Tucker.
Oh, here's some of the guests.
Are coming in now. Let's see if we can move them in, all right?
Bobby.
I knew they went into the dressing room to see the Giants and, of course, their coach. Bob, congratulations. A big game. A couple of the biggest receptions I've ever seen you make, I guess. And Greg Larson, always great offensively, Greg. And it's been a long time since the last playoff for you, right?
Oh, it's a long time. I've been waiting for it, and believe that.
All right. For just a moment now, Greg, I want to talk to Bob for a big reason. Bob, last year you were, I guess, what would be considered a minor league football player. You played with Pottstown, and now suddenly you're in the biggest city of them all, playing, I guess, with maybe the hottest team in football. Has this been a great thing for you to join this Giant team and become really a part of it like you?
It's just fantastic to play here. You know, we won the big one today, and that's what we need. We got a great leader in Fran, and, boy, you know, we just got to win one more now.
All right, let me slip in between you two, and we'll do these highlights like this, and because I know, Greg, you guys did a great job up front, and I want to refer to them as we get into the highlights. Let's go first for Tucker Fredrickson's big 15-yard run. Now, this was a, what would you call it, a false trap or a sucker trap?
It was a give. We had just play before we'd run an end run to the right with Ron Johnson, and Tucker was blocking on Rowe, and Rowe was following very close, and Tucker came back and said he was following the guard, so we just come back and run a give on him.
This, of course, the other guest on my right is Bob Tucker for the first TD. This is just a quick out. What do you run on you, Bob?
This is just a 5-yard square route. With Fran sprinting, I can get a good read on him.
Made the good catch with one hand, huh?
Yeah, that one was lucky on.
Okay, that made it 7-0. Here's the interception now by Scott Eaton, and defensively, I thought, I thought you guys gave them a lead, and then they got on this on the defensive pattern, did a pretty good job, didn't they?
Yeah, I think the defense played a pretty good ball game. They got a couple big plays on them there in that the third quarter, I guess, or fourth quarter. But I think throughout the game they did a pretty good job, and it was like.
All right, Tuck, what did you do on this now? You make the big one.
I was a blocker here, and it was third down. We needed big yardage, so Fran just unloaded to me, and I couldn't go too much. And Donnie was right behind me, so I just give him the ball. Let him go for it.
All right, targeting goes on in this. I don't think he really wanted to throw this. Tuck, what was the call in it?
Yeah, this was a pass play. This was just a sprint out, but the defense just went the other way, and he just ran it in.
On the lateral now, you don't work on that in practice. That's not something you draw up on the board, or Alex Webster draws up, is it?
Well, we might put it in this week.
What about the Rams? Have you worked against their secondary people
before?
Not at all.
Not at all.
But you're not afraid of them? You're not odd?
Well, I don't know. We just got to win it. That's all. We got to prepare, and we just can't think about that.
All right, Bob
We're gone
Tucker.
too far now.
All right, from the Continental League all the way to the Big Show, and you've got a good chance for a playoff. Great game, all right?
Thank you, Tony.
All right, Bob Tucker, back to you, Greg, for just a minute. You're working against Heron inside row, Schmeezing, a young player that's done a great job, Jamie Rivers, and yet, for some reason, the three of you, I'm talking about Van Horn and Case and all of you inside, block better than I've ever seen you opening up the traps. What happened?
Well, I think teams have, beginning to key Ron Johnson to the outside. He's a fantastic runner to the outside, and when they start keying the outside, that means you can run up the middle. And Tucker Fredrickson has been doing a heck of a job blocking and running up the middle. And it's just there. They're playing for the outside runs, and they're there up the middle. You know, we just keep going at them. And it's the second week in a row where we were able to maintain our offensive charges down the field by running up the middle. And when it's there, you got to take advantage of it. And that's the great thing about Fran Tarkenton. You can tell him what you think is there, and he goes with it and sticks with it until they stop it. And
all right, Greg, briefly now. This game's over. It's done. It's a great victory. The Rams, you've got Coy Bacon on one side of you, Merlin Olsen on the other. A big, tough day up front for the New York Giants in this next one, huh?
Very tough. And we've played against the Rams, boy, it's been like, I think, 3 years now. And maybe 6 years ago, they really gave us a beating out there. And the last time we were out there, we should have won it, but we didn't. It was a close game. But they've got a very fine defense and
you've got to go to work on them. Good luck to you, Greg Larson. Always nice to have one of those unsung heroes in here.
Let me shake hands with the man who held the ball, the man who called the game. Tucker, 3 years, and you finally made it. Congratulations. A big win. Now, we'll be back with a final look at the action in the NFL today in just a moment.
John Hancock introduces Rich Man coverage to the not yet rich. A life insurance package with an initial benefit of $100,000. Very good for the ego. $100,000 of life insurance you thought only rich guys could afford, you can afford. The kind of protection you need today when you think of what's happened to the price of the penny postcard. If you're 24, you may have to pay only about $40 a month. That's all, to be insured for $100,000. Ask your John Hancock man about Rich Man coverage. $100,000 worth of life insurance that'll make you feel like a million. John Hancock, huh?
Let me just add one score, Tommy, and then you've got Alex. Miami just got a field goal. They lead 10-3. Here's the only nervous guy with the Giants. Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you, buddy.
It's your old friend.
Alex, you said you're going to be 90 years old before the season's over, but from 0-3 to 9-4, an unbelievable job, right?
Well, you got to give the boys, all the credit. That was a real team effort, and they went out there. They were relaxed all week. You had the feeling right in the locker room before we went out, and they just built themselves up, and it was a 40-man job, and I'm so tickled, I don't even know what to say.
But listen, Big Red, you had them relaxed when you were 0-3. What did you tell them? What have you told these Giants to do this year?
Well, the biggest thing, we were just making a lot of mistakes and just getting them to believe in themselves, because they feel that they're as strong as any club that we face, and they just had to start believing in themselves, and this is what they've been doing, and this is the way they've been playing.
Coach Alex Webster, good luck to you. The next ball game, the next one's a big one to get
Thank
to.
you, Tom.
Just stand there, Tom, because I want to tell you, this man used to be the second leading ground gainer in the history of the New York Giants. I saw you light up the cigarette when he passed you. Ron Johnson passed you today. Alex, congratulations. That was a great win for you. And Tommy, thank you very much for the fine job. Now, let me just add a couple of quick scores that came through. Chicago now leads 35-17 over Green Bay. San Diego 10-0 over Denver, and Cincinnati 30, Houston 13. Now for Jack Whitaker and Tom Brookshire, this is Phil Mazur saying goodbye from Bush Memorial Stadium in St. Louis, Missouri.
Pro Football Report was brought to you by John Hancock Mutual Life Insurance Company, and by Dutch Masters, the gift cigar specially packaged for Christmas, and by Command Dry and Natural Hair Control and Command Tahitian Lime Antiperspirant. Pro Football Report was produced by CBS Television Sports. This is CBS,